Hello everybody, welcome to the final round of Heats in Corrieliminator, the series where we've been taking 300 of Coronation Street's biggest characters from over the year and whittling them down month by month to get to a final 30. We've already had 9 months of this, and last month we put through, who was it? Liz and Dennis, and who was the last one? Audrey. Audrey went through last time, and now we're going to see who's in our final batch. Ready for Corrielimination. I know. Oh, Gemma is over here. Say hello, Gemma.
Hello.
Hello, Gemma. Are you ready to Corrieliminate?
I'm kind of scared.
I guess this is the final Corrielimination, because in the final round they're not necessarily going to be Corrieliminated, are they? They're just going to be ranked. Because I don't want to be losing any of that top 30, I tell you. We just need to make sure they know their place and their order. But yeah, this week we have got another 30. We're going to start off, though, by having a little look at who the listeners put round in the listener vote. Now, don't forget, once we've got our top 30 listeners, there's going to be a final listener vote where you'll be able to rank yours. It is mostly similar to ours, but there are some key differences. Let's have a look at how they got on last month. So, right at the top last month, same as us, Audrey Roberts, Gemma, got 63.5% of people voting for her, so she's definitely going through, along with Liz, same as us, but, sad Gemma, Dennis Tanner hasn't made it through this time.
I didn't think he would.
We knew he wouldn't. He is a personal favourite of ours, particularly Gemma. But Tracy Barlow has squeezed through into that top 3 in the listener vote. So how are you? Oh no, hang on a minute.
I was going to say,
it's
two.
a draw. It's a
see.
draw. It's a draw. It's Tracy Barlow and Leanne Battersby. That's quite cool that they're fighting.
Hang on a minute. Now, what are we going to do here? Because we can't have 41.
31.
31. We can't have 31. What are we going to do?
We can in the listener vote. It's fine. It's fine. I quite like that Battersby and Tracy Barlow battling it out.
Yeah, that is quite fun, yeah.
Especially considering
Battle of the Bitches.
It is the Battle of the Bitches, isn't it? Oh, that's brilliant. I didn't even notice that before. You're right. Okay, so almost getting in with the listener vote this month as well, we had Todd Grimshaw. He's made it into 5th place. Dennis Tanner, 6th place. I
think that's pretty decent.
Yeah, didn't do too badly. Didn't do too badly. We've got quite a few that didn't get any votes at all this time, though. No votes for Trisha Hopkins, sadly. Although Susie Birchall got 6, so obviously she is the better of those two characters that are a definite blind spot for me. Angie Freeman, nothing. Matt Ramsden, nothing. Angela Harris, sad, nothing for her.
No.
Yeah. I know, yeah, nobody's going to vote for Angela, are they? Not when they're picking the top 3 out of these. We had Joe McIntyre, sad, nothing for him. Nothing for Cal, nothing for Nicola Rubinstein, nothing for Aggie Bailey or Grace Vickers as well. It seems like it was a good bunch for just choosing your top 4, and more people are in agreement than not this time, I suppose.
I guess the consensus is stronger.
I can't believe. Well, go on. Oh, Esther Hayes got 5 votes.
Does anyone just get 1?
1 vote. Yeah, Michael Bailey.
Right, so I reckon
there's our Ryan Russell voting there. Yeah.
I was like, if somebody's got 1 vote, it's got to be the actor.
Well,
no, it can't. No, that's a joke. Obviously, if I was an actor and I knew there was a poll, I would get all my friends and family to vote for me. I wouldn't just vote for myself. I'd rather have no votes at all than just 1.
Did Ryan Russell ask all of his friends and family to vote for him and only 1 of them actually bothered? Is that what's happened?
Well, he should have voted for himself, shouldn't he? He did have 2 at least.
Well, those 4 will be joining the other 27 to go into the listener vote, which is going to come out in about a month or so's time when you've had a chance to vote in round 10. But yeah, we haven't got any random ones to pick this time. If you've been paying attention to last Corrieliminator, the round 9, you might even know who's made it into this final one, because we have gone from 300 right down to 30. We got a good bunch left, Gemma. Are you ready to do it?
I'm kind of scared. I've forgotten who's on the list.
Well, you can find out right now. Let's get Corrieliminating. Right then, so let's first, before we get sorting, run down who we've got this month. And the Don himself has finally made it through. It's quite interesting, quite ironic that Ken, who's held out the longest in Coronation Street, has also held out until the final round of Corrielimination. Is he going to get through this month? We'll have to see, but Ken Barlow is first. After him, we've got Lucille Hewitt, Eunice G, Phyllis Pierce, Terry Duckworth, Gloria Todd, Alan Bradley, Maud Grimes, Natalie Horrocks, Jackie Dobbs, Nita Desai, Dev Allahan, Candy Stowe, I was going to say her actor name then. Simon Barlow. We got Ronnie Clayton. Becky McDonald, Ryan, I was going to say
Connor.
Prescott again, Ryan Connor, thank you, I'm doing terribly today. Carla Connor, we got Daryl Morton, we got Dr. Ali Neeson, Tina McIntyre, Mary Taylor, Cole, is he Taylor again? I think she is. We got Kylie Platt, we got Max Turner, Kathy Matthews, we got Kate Connor, Moira Pollock. How does she manage to make it into the top 300? I don't know. Paul Foreman. Well, I think she's maybe a bit too much of a minor character to make it through, but we love her anyway. We have got Bernie Winter and finally Ed Bailey. So these are our final 30. These have all made it out, held on for a year since we first started this, but 27 are going to be cast into the infernal flames of Corrielimination today. Who are they going to be? Should we get Ken Barlow out of the way first, Gemma? Is he making it through this month?
Ken Barlow is going to make it through.
I think he's kind of got to, hasn't he? Again, it's a case of, looking at his competition, are we judging him on do we like him? Is the fact that he's been in there since the beginning? It doesn't necessarily mean that he's got to get through here, but we do like Ken anyway, don't we?
Do you know, it's
pretty integral to the show.
Because I think when we first started doing the podcast, I didn't really like Ken that much. I thought he was a bit of a joke and he's a bit annoying. But I think watching his early years made me appreciate him more. Just like with Emily Bishop.
Yeah.
But also, since Kate Oates did that Who Pushed Ken story, I think he's become a much better and interesting character.
Yeah, I would agree. The last 10 years have been a bit of a renaissance for Ken.
Yeah, because honestly, for a long time, he was just a boring old fuddy-duddy stick in the mud, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's not like he's, living it up in his old age, kind of got a new lease of life particularly, but I think they're using him in a much more interesting way. And the fact that they are still using him, when he's past 90 is a pretty crazy thing.
Crazy.
Yeah, but I love him. I think he's great. I know not everyone's enjoyed the poisoning storyline recently, but you can't say no to Ken, can you? So we'll pop him. I don't know whether he's number 1, 2 or 3, but I'd be surprised if he doesn't make it somewhere into there this month. How any others that you want to look at for your tops end, or do you want to head straight to the bottom and see who's gonna?
Well, I really like Dev.
Dev Allahan is a good choice. I don't know whether he's top 3 material. It depends.
He's definitely top 10, isn't he?
He's 100% top 10 material. You've got a bit of a thing for Dev, haven't you? Do you want to to tell us a bit more about him?
I just think he's hilarious. Number one, he is hilarious, and when he's in a comedy mood, I think he brightens up the scenes. And even when the jokes don't land, I think it's funny anyway, because that's part of the joke. Is that Dev's a bit cringe? That
he is, and there's quite a lot of comedy characters who I'm totally over now, and I cringe. Not with, like you said, with Dev, he is a bit cringe, but he's kind of supposed to be, isn't he? There's some comedy characters, though, that are just like, oh, here we go.
Well, sometimes
maybe we'll get to one of those in a bit.
They just, the joke doesn't land in any way whatsoever. And I know that there are plenty of people that would say that same thing about Dev. But for me, is almost never a miss.
I think that, like we said with Ken, it's been maybe over the last 10 years or so that he's improved as a character, because I don't think he had that comedy bent to him quite as much in the early days. He was a bit of a 70s reject kind of throwback, wasn't he, a little bit, in that he was a charmer and a ladies' man.
He's definitely evolved over the years.
But yeah, he's kind of is somehow desperately trying to keep that persona that did used to fit him. I mean, when he came into the show back in, what was it, early 2000s, late 90s, I can't remember, he fit that sort of persona that he'd built up for himself. He had his 7 shops. He did have the ladies dripping off him in to some extent. And he's a bit like an old rocker, isn't he? That he just doesn't want to give that up. Although, I don't want to say he settled for Bernie, but I think even Dev surprised himself by the fact that the new love of his life is somebody who's maybe not the sort of woman that he would have dated back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And since Asha and Ardy have gone through their teenage years as well, we've got to enjoy the cringy side of Dev a lot more. So I think he's brilliant, and he 100% can do the the serious scenes as well, can't he?
Yeah, like when he was confronting Maria and Gary about
After Ardy got shot. Yeah. But I think there's plenty of times where he can be deadly serious. He can be, quite imposing a character. I really do respect him, but there were quite a few years at the beginning where I didn't think so much of him, which is maybe making me think we need to not forget those years as well where he wasn't one of our favourites. Although obviously he was brilliant during the whole Mad Maya story as well.
Do you think that? What are you feeling about this list in general?
In general, I mean, I don't know. We've had lists of characters before where there were a few more obvious picks, and it was like, how on earth are we going to drop this icon? I don't think we've got that so much this time. I mean, obvious picks for me that are going to go in the top 10, I'm thinking Carla, of course, Carla Connor, the lovely Carla Connor. She's got to be a top 10er. I think that Tina Mack, sexiest, but we're not judging on that, are we? This isn't the British Soap Awards in the early 2000s. No, we've got Becky has got to be a top 10. I think Becky could be a top 3er. I'm thinking.
This is hard.
I'm going to kind of put her more over this side for the moment.
I think we should now focus on the bottom.
Okay, so who are you thinking of there? I mean, I'm straight away thinking there's one very, very obvious pick that 100% should be at number 30, and I don't think anyone's going to question it.
Who?
Ronnie Clayton.
Really?
Yeah, she's not fun. She was a regular character in 2005 to 2006. She was kind of a gangster's wife, wasn't she?
She's got she looks like how they used to draw angels.
Do you think?
Yeah. Do you not think she's beautiful?
I don't know. She's just a blonde lady.
I also really like her hair.
Well, Steve McDonald certainly fell for her,
yeah.
even though she was, as I say, married to a very nefarious type. And she ended up just working for him at Streetcars. They had a bit of a story where the husband was trying to get Streetcars to do criminal bits and bobs, and then they ended up putting him in prison, and then Ronnie stayed dating Steve, and then eventually she what happened? It just happened recently on ITV3 as well. Oh yeah, she ran over an old man. She was a bit like Emma and Faye, I suppose, 20 years earlier. She knocked down an old man, didn't say anything about it, and then the police caught up with her, and then she got carted off to jail. I'd completely forgotten until rewatching it recently on ITV3 what on earth happened to her. But she did have a rather I suppose it was a spectacular exit, but it was still completely forgettable, because I would say the character herself is somewhat forgettable. I don't think I particularly enjoyed her or her story the first time round, and I can't say that a rewatch particularly changed my opinion on her, which is why I think that 30 is possibly where she needs to go. And then I've got a couple of others. Can you see any of there that you... Oh, do you want to say anything about...
I just want to say that I think this is a really hard list, because a lot of these characters, I wouldn't say they're top, 5s, but I really like them. And I don't know how to rank them. Like, how do you rank, like, Moira versus...
Moira, love her.
Pete, what's his face?
Paul.
How do you... Like, because I loved Moira, but she wasn't in it for long enough.
Yeah, Moira had a couple of good years in there, didn't she?
She never really had a story, apart from that weird...
Vic Reeves romance story. And then, Moira was brilliant.
And Peter, actually, and...
Played Paul.
Yeah. Paul's story was only really good at the end, but it was such a fantastic story.
Well, Paul's story was good all the way through, but it was at the end of his time in the show.
What do you mean?
You said that the story was only good at the end, but Paul...
No, well, Paul's life story...
Oh, yeah.
Up until he got MND. It was the making of him. So.
I wasn't a huge fan of Paul beforehand, but Moira certainly was consistently brilliant all the way through her very, very short tenure.
And how do you choose, between, say, Phyllis Pearce and...
Phyllis Pearce is another top 10er, isn't she? I think she's got to be in there.
But, this... And you've got two kind of, real, I would call them middlemen villains in Terry and Alan Bradley, where I don't think Alan Bradley is like super famous as a villain anymore on Corrie. I think his death is the most famous part about him now. Yeah. But he was like one of the original truly evil villains because of what he tried to do.
I remember when I first started getting into Corrie and being a fan. He was the villain, wasn't he? And then Richard Hillman dethroned him.
And then since then, they've just upped the ante every time.
Yeah, that's the thing. They have, haven't they? Like, Alan Bradley was, he went out with Rita. He was, wasn't he working alarms, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in an alarm shop.
And then he had affairs, and then he started getting a bit rough with Rita. I think it was on Jenny's 18th birthday that she came home, or after her 18th birthday party, she came home and Alan had his hands round Rita's neck trying to strangle her. So he turned really nasty, and it was an interesting story where he didn't start nasty straight away, but the show runners, I think they weren't sure what to do with him. They put the idea to Mark Eden, who played him, how about we turn you down this very dark alley, and he was well up for it.
Well,
that seems
Ginnell.
The dark Ginnell, indeed, yeah. That seems to be a bit par for the course for Corrie characters now, doesn't it? Like, they've got a dark side to them. But yeah, I mean, I think compared to Terry Duckworth, so Terry had a longer time on the show. You know, he came into it in 1983, I think it was, and we last saw him, God, I don't know, early 2010s-ish, sort of. It was when he came back and he was opening that nightclub, wasn't he? Do you remember the Seventh Heaven nightclub in the Viaduct? So he had a decent chunk of time on the show, but his stints were never for too long because he was in and out of prison quite a lot, and that was one of the things that I quite enjoyed about Terry. Like every couple of years he'd show up and cause a whole load of mischief and heartache and worry for Vera and Jack.
Jim McDonald.
Yeah, he is a bit like Jim McDonald. Yeah, that kept on showing up again. Although both of them, I think we've probably seen the last of them on the cobbles now.
But anyway, that was the sidetrack of me just being like, how on earth?
Well, I think those two are both going to be middlers, I would imagine. It feels like Terry's probably got a bit more of a legacy than Alan Bradley now, despite obviously Alan Bradley's death being one of the most iconic of classic Corrie.
Can I just rattle out some duds?
You can rattle out some duds if you like, see if I agree with them.
Again, don't anyone take this personally, and if you this is nothing to do with the actors because they all played these parts very well, so don't cry.
I've only got a couple of ones that I think are absolute bottom of the pilers. Go on.
No woman, no cry, okay? And with that said,
there is a woman.
Eunice
Nuttall, yeah.
Yeah, Eunice
so I think that I don't know whether it is 28, 29, because there's one other, I think, fairly obvious character that's going to go down that bottom end as well. Obvious to me anyway. So Eunice was the character who came in and she was quite posh, wasn't she? She had a bit of a silver spoon kind of background, and she ended up going out with Fred, which was always quite funny because I think Bet and Betty, Fred G that is, Bet and Betty and the Rovers couldn't quite believe that she saw something in this odious barman. But she was a bit of a thief, wasn't she? She had a bit of a history. And she and Fred wanted to buy their own pub together, but her she didn't have good references from pubs that she'd worked at in the past. But yeah, they ended up getting engaged, getting married, went off again. And then we last saw, and this was mid-80s, then we last saw Eunice in the early 2000s when she came. She had a guest house that Jack and Vera stayed in.
That's
after,
like my bit of trivia.
She came back again. Maybe it was 2000. Maybe it was 98, 2008, 2009-ish, roughly. It was after Jack and Vera got kicked out of the Rovers. I think they needed somewhere to stay and ended up finding her guest house there. And that was quite a fun stint because she started seducing Jack, didn't she? Do you remember? And he had to control himself around her, and I think Vera found out and they never saw her again. So she had quite a bit of fun to her. Do you want to... Who else? Because I've got one other...
Who's your obvious?
I think it's Gloria Todd.
Gee, I'm so glad you said that.
Why?
Because I was like, is Gloria Todd someone I should really know about?
She is a proper blank spot for me.
I feel
along
like
with
I'm
Susie Birchall and Trisha Hopkins.
I feel like I'm from a parallel universe where she was never in Coronation Street. Because if you showed me that picture of her, if you went, who's this and what's she from, I'd say, I don't know, is it a barmaid from EastEnders? I literally do not. I know the name so well. That name somehow is etched in my brain, but the character is like.
I think she kind of came from an era when she was just a barmaid who just did barmaidy things, probably getting involved on the sidelines with, you know, Bet and Alex stories, because she was a barmaid in the 80s, but you'd have to really push me hard to try and say any story that she was really involved in. I can't really remember. It wasn't my era, and it's not. I can't think of any obvious Gloria Todd.
Why do I think her name is so important?
I think it's because she comes from the time when Corrie, you know, Rovers was in a real golden era with Jack and Fred and Bet and Betty and Alec, and that was a proper golden Rovers team, wasn't it?
I don't recognise any photo of her.
Yeah, she
because she's played by Sue Jenkins.
Yeah, mother of Richard Fleischman, who played Richard Harris as well. But yeah, I'm sure there are some die-hard Gloria Todd fans out there who've seen a lot more of the 80s and have got her in, you know, hold her in higher esteem. But for me, she's just a real blank slate. I mean, I'd almost be thinking of putting her lower than Eunice, because at least I've got some fond memories of Eunice. I mean, do you want to put her below Ronnie, or is the fact that Ronnie was clearly a side character and only in for a year for one or two little stories as a girlfriend and that's it? Does that
Gloria Todd was in it for 3 years.
Was that all it was?
But apparently she was a favourite.
Not from us. Maybe that saves her from the number 30 spot.
And another No Woman No Cry is Nita.
Yeah, I agree. Nita Desai.
Very sensible. I honestly think that she joins the club of women who I would probably want to be friends with, aka all the boring ones. Like, who was it? Jude's wife.
Oh yeah, Angie Appleton.
Angie. Sorry, but Dee Dee's a bit dull, isn't she? Toya.
Oh.
The Dull Women's Society of Weatherfield, of people who get dragged into stories against their own better judgment.
I can't remember how long...
in real life would just be very sensible and not get involved in anything.
I can't remember how long Nita was in the show for. It can't have been more than a year or two.
She's very sensible. I did like her. She
came in with the rest of the Desais when Alf finally left the corner shop and it was time for a change of guard there. I think she worked for Maud, possibly, at the time, but she was a bit of a spy for her dad, Ravi, who wanted to know kind of some of the secrets in the corner shop so that he knew how low he could go with his offer for the place. I think she had a bit of a thing with Curly, but she's also quite Angie Freeman-ish, isn't she? She's little like bit
the Blue
humorless.
Stocking Society.
The Blue Stocking Society?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, that's like, you know, like a blue stocking.
I think that does she go higher than Eunice? I mean, no. she's got something going for her in that she's more recent than Eunice, I suppose. But I think I do have fonder memories of Eunice than Nita, so maybe I will do a bit of a swap around there.
Blue Stocking Society was like women who were intellectual.
Oh yeah, she's definitely part of that. It's a sad state of affairs, really, when these intelligent women come into the show and they're automatically dull and boring.
They're like middle classy, kind of like sensible, and they're decent. They're decent people normally.
Yeah.
But they they're not going to be screaming in the pub and throwing beer on people.
The Desai family themselves didn't last too long as a whole, did they? Vikram stayed on for a little bit longer, her brother. Ravi, I think, was possibly the first to leave, the dad, but they paved the way for the Alahans to come in, because I think Dev was the uncle or cousin or nephew or something of Ravi, I don't remember. But so I think 28 is probably quite fitting for her.
Right, Dr. Ali, because...
Oh yeah, Dr. Ali. Alex Neeson.
I'm definitely guilty of... If you show me a picture of a character who's been recast, I will only really think of their stories when they were the face you're showing me. But I know he's got a longer history in Corrie, but he feels more than any other character. And him and Ryan are just such... Whatever the plot needs to be, this is what your character is. I don't think that the show knows who either of those characters are, because they've both come back. I think Ryan's way more successful now. but they both came back as like, oh, just someone else. This character is now, but he's the worst for it, because there's no way that guy was the same person who was.
What, Michelle's son, Ali? Yeah, he even had to change his name, didn't they? Because there was already an Alex, Cafe Alex, that was in the show when they brought him back in. But the baby swap storyline was a funny one, because it's funny that we've got both the brothers here, haven't we? We've got Ryan and we've got Alex. And we always thought that the whole plot with Michelle accidentally having had her baby swapped at birth was just quietly being pushed under the rug at Coronation Street because it's a bit too weird and out there. But no, it was brought back. And Ryan Prescott is much more successful in the role, and I think we enjoyed his kind of brand of kind of like derpiness, I suppose, a little bit more. He's a bit of a himbo, isn't he?
I definitely think
Alex was he's similar to Nita, really, a bit too clever and a bit too kind of stoic and dry.
Well, no, I think he was too self-pitying, really, for me to.
You reckon?
I like drugs now.
Yeah, I don't remember much of his stories apart from the whole diazepam addiction that he got into.
Okay, so this is I'm speaking strictly fictionally. Okay, so don't get your knickers in a twist. But there's something. If you're going to be on drugs, do it in a criminal, exciting way. At least, I don't like any drug story, and I find them all very boring. But at least when you're involved with gangsters and selling drugs and cuckooing and money and you owe this and that and whatever, it's a lot more exciting than just sadly taking prescription pills that you shouldn't have.
I quite enjoyed him having a sneak about from Dr. Gaddis in the medical centre.
I know, but it was all just so... It was... Again... It was heralding the future of the show, which is like, do you like Casualty? Would you like Casualty to be in Coronation Street?
We did. You I don't know whether you're giving him enough credit here, because don't forget about him with what's his face, Ronan, and
yeah, that's true. There was a bit of gangstery.
There was. What was the boy called? I can't remember. The one that was having a seizure on their lounge, and then was it Ryan didn't call Ali in time, and then eventually Ali gets into the car crash and kills Ronan, doesn't he, by taking the stake of wood out of him? That was badass.
Managed to make it really boring.
I think that was quite exciting, but they didn't really go anywhere with it. I think it after that then the drugs problem started. I'm kind of a bit loose on the timeline in my head, but he ended up having a fight with Gary Windass, going into prison, and they just never came back again. I don't think too many people were sad to see him go, but I think the actor behind him has said that Corrie just wasn't quite the fit for him, was it? So he chose to leave, and that's the end of him. I am not remembering all of the actual excitement that came with that story, but still, it's because he just seems very boring to me. Well, do you think he deserves to go higher than Eunice as a bit more of a long-term character with some roots in the show with Michelle?
I really think they should recast him.
I'm not fussed about whether he comes back.
But they say that there's a man desert.
They do say there's a man desert in Corrie at the moment. You're right.
So why not bring in a hunk?
One thing that did work really nicely with him and Ryan was the kind of bromance-ish that was going on between them, and a lot of the fans at the time were saying that they should get them together, shouldn't they? Because they're half brothers but not technically related, and they were thinking, that was Corrie fans trying to will a story into existence. I was happy for them just to be kind of matey brothers together, to be honest. Where would you say that Ryan should be going in our list as we're on the topic?
Ryan's a solid middler.
I mean, he's got a bit of recency bias going for him, and we were saying before the acid attack story that he's seriously underused, but also underappreciated as well. He needs something exciting to happen to him. He certainly got that. He's got the acid on the face now, but he did brilliantly for that 12 months. But he's almost been put back into a cupboard again, hasn't he? Like they got him out, drained him dry, and now what's Ryan getting up to?
No, exactly.
Who really knows? I don't think he's the most inciting of characters.
No, I do like him.
There's something about him that makes him quite likable.
I think Ryan Prescott is just really
he's got a charm.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. I still think that they should pair him up friendship-wise with Michael Bailey, because that's another character who also seems to have been left out to dry. But those two together got a bit dummies. would be
Yeah, I
quite
do
fun
like
to
dummies.
watch. But oh well, maybe in the future. So
He's like a cheerful
middler, probably
dummy, isn't
probably
he?
bottom end of middle. I'm thinking. Are there any others that you think deserve absolutely to be in the bottom 10 here?
Right, I'm going to upset some people, but No Woman No Cry.
What?
Kate Connor.
That's a big move. Defend yourself.
I'm bold. I don't.
Is
like
this our
her.
personal preference coming out here?
I just don't like her.
Oh, lovely Faye Brooks.
Faye Brooks is beautiful. She doesn't need my help.
She doesn't. Yeah.
She didn't need me at all. She's not going to be upset because she's doing other things. But the character of Kate was just super unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
She had only child syndrome, but she had
She had Hayden as a brother.
She had a brother. She was so self-centered and spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
She's always getting her dad to bail her out of things. And I just don't... She just like a blank space. I mean, I know that she was really popular with Rana.
Well, yeah, especially in her final 12 months or so of the show when they had the whole Kana romance.
That's fine.
She was right up there in terms of popularity, but you can tell as soon as Rana got splattered and then Kate moved on, that fan base just dissipated, didn't it? And I don't think there's been left.
There was nothing for them anymore. But the sad thing is that she decided to leave. Faye Brooks. Yeah. And poor Bavner, who played
Rana
was trying to protect the. She knew there was a big fan base, and she tried to protect and be thoughtful for their feelings about how important the relationship was. But what she didn't realise was that there was no ending at all of this relationship that the fan base was gonna appreciate or like, which is understandable. But I just didn't.
I can see Kate as a character that is on the benches for a possible comeback. I'm not sure that she's one that people would be doing cartwheels over about coming back. Her time is over as far as I'm concerned.
I just don't see what she would bring. She is a very
something extra to the Carla story, I suppose.
She's very beautiful, and she didn't really have a huge personality. But when she did show her personality, I just thought she was quite spoiled, and
it was fun that they lent more into that. Like it seemed like it was a bit unintentional how much of a daddy's girl and as a sponger at the beginning, and then they started making a bit more fun of it, which was quite cool.
I do think that it was
lowish
deliberate at the end.
Lowish. I don't know whether she's 25, but I'll put her there for the moment.
Okay, but just to point out, like I said, this is a very tricky list here because I don't necessarily think that Kate deserves to be that low. But in comparison to the other people that are here,
there are higher middles there.
Like a lot of these people are actually really good characters. Like there's Simon Barlow is kind of glaring at me.
I don't think
I've done something wrong.
I don't think Simon deserves to come yet, but it's such a shame for a Barlow to be that low down in any list, isn't it?
But if you're going to talk about ripe for a return, Simon Barlow, I think. Definitely.
With a head swap?
Yeah. I think that Alex Bain was absolutely fantastic as a child actor. But I think
he was adorable. We can't forget that.
To channel that into anything that was even remotely likeable as a young adult.
No. And they clearly didn't know what to do with him.
He beat Leanne up, and we all want to do that. So how did he make it look so bad?
Yeah, he was absolutely brilliant as a young thing when he came in. He was 5 maybe?
Was so cute
when he came into the show, and he rode a good few years on that, and I think that should get him a bit higher on our list. But once he went into those difficult teenage years, he just didn't really come out the other side.
It didn't translate.
He didn't really have that many mates. He didn't have.
No, he didn't.
Did he have a girlfriend at all on the show?
He said
I'm not
he
sure
had a
whether
girlfriend. He said he had flatmates, but I noticed.
None of
he
them
was
living in a flat for a while, wasn't he? Who we never saw.
None of them wanted to hang around with him or like be seen anywhere out with him. What does that tell you?
It's such a shame because as part of the Barlow clan, he's obviously very, very important to the legacy of the show. He's a direct line from Ken Barlow, which is, I think, possibly one of the reasons why Corrie kept him going, just to see if they could do anything with him. But I can't remember whether it was Alex's decision to leave or whether it was all just part of Chris Gascoigne leaving and it felt like a natural thing to happen. But I think he's not as low down as Kate there. I'm looking at the likes of Daryl Morton and thinking he probably deserves to come around here. Maybe even lower than Kate, possibly, in terms of importance.
Daryl and Craig Gazy, who played
Graham Proctor.
They kind of occupy a similar place in my head, and I think sometimes I give Daryl a bit of a break because he reminds me so much.
Yeah, but he didn't have quite the charm.
I really like the actor.
Yeah, Johnny Dixon was great.
I really, really rated him. I thought, and he was cool, and he was quirky, and he was a bit alternative, wasn't he? Without sort of making it his fashion.
Yeah, I sometimes will get him and Craig Harris confused in my head as well. But
you're right.
Because it just as another next door neighbour mate of David's, but he was right. He was a bit more alternative.
It's not like
he took drugs and everything.
Yeah, but he wasn't like I'm a lad. He was he was like he could have been an extra character in the In-Betweeners. He's got that vibe of like dorky kind of not really confident.
Do you remember his shed?
Yeah, he lived in a shed.
That's the main thing that I remember about Daryl, that he lived in a shed and played his noise too loud. But the whole of the Morton clan was such a flub, to be honest. And did he? I think he was one of the longest. He's probably the last surviving one, apart from Teresa, who maybe stayed a little bit longer, but she started after the others.
Maybe Kate should be higher than Daryl.
I think Kate should be higher than Daryl. I think you're right. I just because at least. He's one that I can't remember too much about. I mean, should we swap Dr. Ali with Daryl? Does he deserve to be a bit higher there?
If you want to put him up, do it.
I think possibly my personal slight affection for Daryl puts him a bit higher, because I'm gonna say I haven't got any such affection for Dr. Ali, despite having a great story with the pole through the chest of Ronan Truman.
That was quite exciting, because there was a moment where I thought they might kill Michelle.
Yeah, again. Alas no. She lived to fold her arms another day.
How many times can you try and kill this woman?
Where are we putting? I think that I'm looking at Max, I'm looking at Lucille, and sadly looking at Moira to possibly be coming soonish.
Jackie Dobbs. I know you love Jackie Dobbs. I know you love Jackie Dobbs.
I've been waiting to get her mentioned.
And Candice. These are characters who should have had more. And Kathy.
Jackie Dobbs is a proper icon.
I know.
She had less than 50 episodes probably in total, probably. I imagine. But she wrung every drop out of those appearances. Although, to be fair, to her competitors, I think her final stint on the show. Remember when she came back with the pink bob? Which is when Margie Clark auditioned thinking it was for a different character, so she did her hair differently, and they're like, no, is this for Jackie
if you think about it,
she was so good in the prison story and after. Think
about the fact that she didn't even think she was coming back for the same character. That's how important even Jackie Dobbs was to Margie Clark.
She was just
She's
so...
in 65 episodes.
Oh, was she? Okay. She was so good when Deirdre was in prison, and she was helped see her through, and she was like... Didn't she beat up the prison guard or something that was being horrible to Deirdre? And then she shows up on her doorstep and she kind of cuckoos somewhat, doesn't she, into Deirdre's life? And Deirdre just couldn't say no.
Do you think that maybe some of it could just be because you love her accent?
I do think that she has got an excellent accent. I just think she was a lot of fun. And I recognise that a lot of people don't like her at all, and she grated on them too much. But she was the kind of character who was designed to grate. And
she's the kind way of like that Mick and Lou.
Yeah, she was she did have Lou-ish tendencies to her. Yeah. But I think even more so, just kind of nails on a chalkboard sort of character. And I enjoyed seeing how other people kind of suffered and got fed up with her. And I loved the relationship that she had with her and her Tyrone. Well, not her Tyrone, was she? Apparently, according to that retcon, they're not even related anymore. She was hard done by. She was short-changed. I do love Cassie,
I totally
but
agree
I still prefer the idea that Jackie was Tyrone's mum. It was a bit like how we had Maggie Clegg and Gordon Clegg had this lovely relationship in the 70s in Coronation Street, and then they said, oh no, Betty's Gordon's mum now, and it's like, oh well, I don't know whether I like that. She was great.
So I'm going to say Kathy, Candice, and Jackie.
Kathy as well. You're adding into this.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these characters on here, I like. I actually really like.
I want to put Jackie higher than Simon.
Do it then.
I will. Well,
You're
Simon's
the one
not
who
really
put
anyway
Simon.
yet.
You're the one that put Simon over there. See,
yeah, I
see
had Simon about 16, but I think he's going to go a bit.
You're thinking in theory Simon should be in the middle, right? But you're not thinking about who is in this list.
Okay.
This list is a tricky one because, like I said, a lot of these characters are solid middlers.
So, what do you think of Max? Because I said that I was feeling like it should be about his turn now. And Paddy Beaver was lovely, and I think that they had something good going with his character. And it was, I would still feel disappointment that he's no longer in the show because it is a bit of unused potential. But I think that's kind of, if this is the end of his time on, well, it doesn't matter whether it's the end of his time on Corrie for the purpose of this list. We're judging by what he's done so far, and he just felt just a little bit underused or badly used. They put him in that far right story, which wasn't a good look for him. Although I did enjoy him in that story. And they had him up with Lauren.
I didn't like the way that Corrie was so quick to forgive him.
No.
For all of that, because I never felt like he truly had enough time to reflect and really changed his ways that much. I just think that they brushed it under the carpet, honestly, a bit, which was weird. I just think they made quite a lot of mistakes with his character because he really was a psychopath, wasn't he?
He was a mini one at one point, yeah.
And it is fascinating that this character, he's David's,
stepson.
Yeah, but I don't know. If it just felt like they just made him unrelentingly bad, but then kind of treated him as though he's like, just
got a soft side in there.
And like he was just screaming for help the whole time, which I can't really sympathise with when you're making racist propaganda.
No,
like, it doesn't feel like a sort of mischievous hijinks that went wrong, does it? It feels like something.
It's the same with burning down a house. It's like, that was a bit of a silly thing to do, wasn't it?
And the
that was a bit
grooming stuff.
Bit more than you needed.
Oh, it wasn't his fault. He was groomed. Like I said before, we have a circle then of people that were groomed, and it's no one's fault. It's just one mother racist somewhere who came up with the idea, and everyone else has just been groomed into it. Like at some point, you've got to take a bit of personal responsibility. And like the point I'm trying to make is that you could forgive one major mistake. But he's made about 5, like roofing people, drugging people, burning it down houses, making racist propaganda, covering up a murder.
Like pushing Joel off the viaduct.
He's just like one of the worst. Like for being naughty, he's literally one of the worst characters we've ever had.
He's got ADHD. You can't. It's not his fault.
But somehow I still really like him because I like Paddy Beaver.
I know, but I will say, because I mentioned this with Simon. One thing that Max doesn't have going for him is an uber cute, adorable, iconic young childhood, did he? Because although he was in the show from fairly young, I wouldn't say that Harry McDermott playing him really made much of an impact or an impression at all. He was kind of cute, especially in the early days when Kylie was trying to get rid of him, and Becky and Steve, I think, were going to adopt him, and there was this gorgeous golden-haired young boy that they're rescuing from the druggy, scummy real mother Kylie. But he didn't have the Simon Barlow, Chesney Brown sort of charm to him, did he? He was just a fairly nice kid. So he didn't really come into himself until the recasting happened, and even then he was a bit on dodgy ground. So I don't know whether Simon maybe needs to go higher than him. I don't know. What do you think? Simon, they're quite similar in terms of personality and characters, apart from Simon didn't get involved in quite so dodgy stuff. I know he was delivering. I know he got down into county lines and everything, but he was preyed upon by Harvey.
Oh, he's groomed.
He was groomed as well. Never the kid's fault.
So it's never anyone's fault if you're supposed to like them. So Simon had a strong childhood, and I think a very poor young adulthood, and vice versa for Max.
Yeah.
So the lasting impression because of the recency bias for me is that Max is a much stronger character than Simon.
I think that they need to be quite close to each other.
I'm going to judge it based on how I felt when I found out they were leaving.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be too harsh here, but when I heard that Simon was leaving, I was like, yeah.
Feels
okay.
right.
And when I found that Max was leaving, I was like, but that's a shame.
You mentioned, so we'll kind of put them around. These middle ones are really difficult.
That's what I mean. Why don't you, right, okay.
I'm kind of, maybe for the time being, if I put Max at 22.
Jackie goes, no.
No, Jackie is so much more of a stronger character than
Jackie's
both
not
of
better
these.
than Max.
Yes, she is. She totally is.
Where do you put her then?
I would potentially put her higher. I think I've got much more of a love for Jackie clearly than you have.
Yeah.
But I suppose she was more before your time watching.
I'm being realistic here. I'm not trying to be mean about anyone's legacy.
Okay. But we've still got some other characters. I would still say that, Lucille, and maybe Candice, maybe Kathy, maybe even Ed, to be honest.
I know, Ed's like
he's sitting there at the bottom going, they've not mentioned me yet.
Skating through.
Yeah.
Ed needs
Do we need to bump
the,
some other people up?
Ed needs to get on the list.
Yeah.
Ed is...
Who's Ed? He's got the recency bias going in his favour.
Are we going to put him?
I do like Ed, but I do like Ed. I do
like Ed. I like Ed. I like everybody.
I didn't particularly get into his gambling story that much that year, and that was his first proper big story, wasn't it? And he stole the Christmas presents and lied to the family. I loved his relationship with Aggie. It's such a shame that we can't see that anymore. But he went for a good few years not really doing very much. He was a nice guy, but a bit uninteresting. But I really do. I do want to champion Ed, and I've not given up on him, and he's certainly not one of the characters that I think we should get rid of them. He's clearly not working.
Not. I
feel like he's got potential, but now that he's kind of on his own a bit, maybe we'll see him a bit more this year, I suppose, because we're going to obviously see more of Ronnie this year with the Debbie dementia story. So maybe this will be a chance for Ed to come to the fore some more. I don't know.
To be honest with you, everyone except for the sort of the top fives over there, I kind of feel as though you could just put them in a tumble dryer and then pull them out at random and tell me I'd come up with that list myself, and I probably would.
That is not what Corrielimination is for. We need to be scientific.
That's what I'm saying we should do. Although if you want to speed this up, we could.
So I've just put Ed. I've slotted him between Kate and Daryl. That could feel right. I feel kind of bad having Eunice here because I've got I did like her, but I think she is. I think that she's a bit of a footnote on the Corrie history.
Get Candice on the board.
Candice was fun. Nikki Sanderson has recently finished filming in Hollyoaks, don't you know?
And is that a spoiler for Hollyoaks?
No, it doesn't matter. It's fun. No, I think she might have left. I don't remember. But she said that she's given a very never say never response when asked whether she'd come back to Coronation Street again. And I really think now could be the time. I can't believe it's been 20 years since she bobbed off with Status Quo. I can only imagine what her life off screen could have been since then for Candice.
I think she'd be great to kind of bring Sarah down a peg or two.
I wonder whether she would, or whether she'd come back as a bit of a has-been and always saying, oh yeah, when I was out with the Quo, and it turned out that career only lasted for like a year or two, and then she's been trying to get that high ever since. I don't know. But as a kind of, she was like a bimbo friend of Sarah, but she was a lot more streetwise, wasn't she? She had a bit more life experience.
Definitely. She wouldn't have been sent to an internet man's house.
No, definitely not. And she was a lot of fun, but I think when a bit like Eva, when they lent into her bimbo side, that was when she was the best. I just remember some of the scenes, like when she was auditioning to be a TV weather girl, and she didn't have a clue what she was talking about. It was so well written, and then you got her being a helicopter weather girl, and I can't remember. I think we heard over the radio some of the silly things that she was saying. Then she got air sick as well. She was a real fun character. I quite, second time round, appreciated her romance with Warren Baldwin. It didn't feel like when she left in 2005 that it was clearly time for her to go. And I think, with 20 years down the line, we could have this back. And as Sarah is still in the show, like you said, it is really kind of...
I think they'd bring her back like... She'd come back as though she was a big shot and be, can we just crash yours for a bit? And then they gradually reveal that everything wasn't quite as rosy as she was making
It does
out.
kind of write itself, doesn't
it?
it? It really, really does. I'd love to see, how much of her bimbo tarty kind of side has still stuck with her, or whether, has she matured in the intervening 20 years? I don't know. But we're not talking about the possibilities for future.
No, we're not.
But I've got a lot of love for Candice, but I do recognise that she was definitely on the minor side of things. She was really kind of Sarah's friend, Warren's girlfriend, not so much a character in her own right, possibly. Is she, does she go... I think I would put her higher than the ones that we've got so far.
This is really hard
not
because,
Jackie, though.
Is she higher than Mary? Or is Mary higher? Is the Kathy higher? Is Moira higher?
I'll happily put Candice a lot higher.
I don't know.
I mean,
literally, this is so difficult now. This is like
Moira's a tricky... I think Moira, and I still would say Lucille, is getting on very well up here at the moment.
These characters, I'm going to say, if you said to me, right, rate these characters out of 10, I'd give almost all of these characters like a 6. You know?
Yeah.
Bernie, I think, should be on the more of the left-hand side of the...
But not too far to the left.
Bernie's a top 10.
I don't know whether I would agree with that, but we'll have to see who else gets there.
In this list, yes.
Maybe.
Oh my God. Well, where do you think she should go then?
I don't know. I'll put her over there for the time being.
Look at the people.
Okay.
If you're doing a random list of 30 Coronation Street characters, yes, Bernie's going to be in the top 10.
Does Mary get into the top 10?
I don't know. I think she's been wasted for
a long time.
Possibly 10 years.
Some people still really, really rate and love Mary.
They're part of the problem. Because you're accepting an inferior product because she used to be so much better.
The joke has worn thin.
I don't think it has. I think there's so potential. I still think that Patty Claire is a great comedic actress. Mm-hmm. I think not having Norris around has really affected...
You're right, actually. I think that the lack of Norris has really done a number on this character, and she's been a bit aimless since then. They've teamed her up with Brian a little bit, haven't they? Mooning over Brian
is not funny.
I don't find her mooning over Adam that funny either. It seems to be a bit of a returning...
It's a bit like Baby Reindeer.
It is. If Adam and Mary's paths just so happen to cross in a scene, the writer's like, oh, brilliant, I'm going to have her say, hello, Adam, and just going to leave it at that.
I don't mind that.
I suppose as a recurring gag, it's all right. But I loved all the stuff with her mum and her tales of whimsy about what went on in her past. But the more that years go by, the more I think you're just kind of making it up, and it's just a bit silly.
Yeah, are you a pathological liar? Because this isn't actually funny at all. This is a serious...
Well, she was definitely more of a psycho at the beginning, wasn't she?
Well, yeah, I mean, when they do the Misery parody with Harry Norris is one of the funniest episodes of Coronation Street of all time.
It was really, really well done. And I think they realised that they were onto something with the character there, which is when they took that kind of crazier edge off her and made her more of a harmless buffoon. And for a while it worked, but she just isn't quite firing on the same cylinders now, for me, as she was back in those early days. But I do recognise her status as a bit of a Corrie icon, and she's been in the show for 15, 16 years or so now. Not that time should be the only thing we're judging it on, but possibly a top 10 for Mary. What do you think? See, I'm kind of thinking that like Natalie is potentially a top 10er as well. Natalie Oryx. I didn't love her that much. But
are you saying it because you think that everyone else thinks that she's high?
I think that as a new golden age character in the turn of the millennium, she was a strong, pretty decent landlady. but yeah, her relationship with Vinny wasn't that fun. I think it was more the affair story with Kevin that thrust her into the limelight, and the fight that she had with Sally. I'm kind of clutching at straws a little bit, but I know that story, as much as I didn't like the idea of Sally and Kevin getting split up, that is a bit of a modern classic story, don't you think? The Natalie and Kevin and Sally love triangle.
Is definitely, yeah.
It hailed in the beginning of the new era. It was Brian
it did.
Park that came in famously and said, "Who's the most loving couple, or who's the couple that would never split up? Right, let's split them up." And then Natalie was invented to cause that. But it did feel, having watched her recently on ITV3, that she ran out of steam in her later years, and it wasn't such a huge loss to the show when she kind of disappeared.
I don't have any great thoughts about her one way or the other.
I think that she stands the test of time as a Corrie icon more than anyone that we've put in the bottom 10.
I mean, at least she's got some scenes where you can go, oh, remember that scene? Like if you show a picture of her to lots of people, they'll immediately have that image in their mind of her and Sally.
Yeah, she's done a good job imprinting herself on the long-term memory of the Corrie fan just by the strength of that story. I think one of my favourite Natalie Horrocks adjacent scenes is when Sally goes to her house, floods it, and writes "whore" on the mirror so that it showed when it's steamed up later, but she wasn't even in that scene.
This list is honestly so
I know,
tricky.
You keep saying. Right, Kathy Matthews.
But it is, at the end of the day, this is all completely pointless. Because we only have to pick the top 3.
Oh, I know, but people are counting on us.
I feel like I'm wasting. I'm like, this is so much.
You think this is hard? You wait until we get to the finale next month, and we've got 30
really
stone cold. So am I.
I am so. I wish I'd never come up with this idea because.
Right, look, I'm gonna say Kathy Matthews. I think she's great. I think that she's not as strong a character as Jackie Dobbs. If I kind of bump Jackie up to maybe 19, put Kathy at 20. Melanie Hill is clearly a very strong actress. We've just seen a few bits of her in Casualty recently. And even before,
great in that.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And even before Coronation Street, she had a real pedigree. And she felt like kind of a big name when they cast her as Kathy. But once the sheen of her introduction had worn off and we had that lovely relationship with Roy, it felt like they just cast her adrift down that comedy-esque sort of character route, and they didn't really know what to do with her. The scene where she had what was it? She took some magic mushrooms. I can't remember how that happened. What was the story there?
I don't know, but she came down the stairs, didn't she? And she didn't know what was going on.
That was peak Kathy moment.
That was her high,
there.
And the low was being scared of a mouse with Yasmin and.
Oh my god! And Elaine.
And Elaine.
Yeah.
Those 3 women could. I mean, I could have happily let them get blasted off into space.
She was really put out to pasture when they paired her up with Brian and decided that we're never going to show any of their home life. We're not really going to show any of them working at the cabin.
So frustrating because Brian's like the kiss of death somehow, because he should have always been with Julie.
Yeah.
The scenes with him and Julie at the moment are fantastic.
They've got
him
such
and
great
Mary
chemistry.
And him and Kathy were like, no.
I think that they could have had potential with Brian,
I mean,
but
Brian's not been in it. Brian, up until this stuff with Julie, is like, is he just a rumour? Don't know.
Okay, well let's leave Kathy there at 20-ish for the time being. Where are you thinking for Lucille here?
I really like Lucille. She
We've not seen a whole lot of her.
Important purpose.
Yes.
Because she was the only young person on Coronation Street.
Yeah, she was the OG child, wasn't she?
She was quite idealistic and really into trends, and she looked up to all of the sort of the young adults on Corrie and kind of worshipped
she kind of idolised Sheila and Doreen. And
I thought she was really sweet. I liked the conflict that they had with the with her dad about marrying Concepta and not wanting to move to Ireland, and
she played an important role in the early few years of Coronation Street, but she didn't have a big story because I mean, they couldn't, could they? Because it was a program about adults. These days, we'd probably, if Lucille was in it, we'd probably be sick to the back teeth of her, and she'd be on the front of every soap cover having various dramas and traumas thrown at her. But I don't know whether that ever really happened to Lucille, and we've not seen a whole lot of the 70s, or even, the second half of the 60s are a little bit dry for us, aren't they? When she got out of that teenage phase. So in my head, she's just a kid, but she stayed into the show into her 20s, didn't she? It's just empty for me, and I wouldn't like to say, well, she's clearly very important, because thinking back to what I know about the show, then I can't grasp onto any big stories or moments that I just happen to know that Lucille had just from being a Corrie fan. So there are some characters who you might not know so much about, but you think, well, I know they're an icon. I don't know, because they had this big story or this big moment. I can't say the same about Lucille.
I would put her quite high.
Would you? Go on then.
I already told you why.
Well, we're going to have to split the difference and put her right somewhere in the middle then for this. You
just keep putting your people in the middle here and arguing about specifically where they should go.
But what apart from do you acknowledge that from what we've seen of the character, she hasn't been that important? Or are you kind of going just on, yeah, I quite like her?
No, I think she is more important than you remember, and because she did have some big storylines, and they were all very interesting, like coming of age storylines. When she was doing her exam stuff, and she decided to live with Jack and Annie, and like when her dad died, and then her trying to navigate this new relationship with Concepta, because they never really liked each other, and her trying to deal with what do I do with this woman who was my husband's wife, but she's now all of the family I've got in the world, but I don't want to. We also
had the story when little Christopher was born, didn't we? And she didn't get on with having a younger sibling and not being the centre of attention in the family anymore. Okay, well,
I really thought that I forgot the name of the actress, but she did a great job. Yeah.
Okay.
Is she better than who?
We've got also. I would say. I would probably want to put her.
She's better than Candice.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do. Put her at, what's that, 16?
15, I can put her at
15.
Candice right. Is at 16 currently, but we've got some empty slots for 17 and 18. Should we just rattle through the characters that we've not talked about at all yet and see where roughly we're putting them? Moira here, grinning away like a bit like Ed, she's not been mentioned yet. I as much as I adored her characters over the 2 years, 3 maybe that she was in it, she can't go into the top half, can she? Because she is the epitome of side character, comic relief, but didn't actually have a whole lot going for her plot wise. Not that you need to have a big plot to be important in Coronation Street, but maybe if she hadn't left in 2020 and we'd had another 5 years of her to go on, maybe she could be higher. But
she was in 74 episodes, but I think she made every one of those count.
She did.
And she's one of these characters who, when she's in a scene, you're just excited. And that's partly because, like you said, she didn't really have a story. She's always, the seasoning. She was always a bit of extra flavour to whatever else was going on.
So, go on.
She was a bit like Norris in that she was very judgmental. That was fantastic. Her working at the doctor's was phenomenal.
I loved when she came back after her first little departure and people were having rumours about her, about why she was let go from the doctors, and she was like, it's because I stole blood.
Yeah, I love that.
That was real. And my best moment for Moira ever was 100%. What do you know what I would say is my top Moira moment?
When she walked through the house with wine.
Well, it was from that episode, but yeah, the Get to Know Pat party, and she's telling everybody in Eileen's Land, you're the one that everybody hates, and you're the one that's having an affair with. That was
one of the best scenes in Coronation Street of all time.
That was I don't know
best comedy scenes.
Yeah, but I think it maybe has been forgotten a little bit.
It has,
but
because she's not in it anymore.
They paired her off with Colin Callan, who was Vic Reeves coming into the show, Jumois, and he was never that brilliant a character. And the idea of, I think they had him. There was a story where he thought he was Norris's son for a bit. I just didn't think he really worked. That kind of smacked of star casting for the sake of it, you know.
Yes.
And so I didn't particularly love them together, although they did have a very funny, passionate snog one time, I remember. Where are you kind of thinking for Moira?
Okay.
I've got stronger feelings of love for her than I have for, say, Ryan or Lucille.
But I think she's top 10. I do. I know. I don't care.
Top 10?
Yeah, I do.
Are you serious? Wow. Just in terms of affection for her.
Yeah.
Not importance to the show. I'll put her down at number 10 for the moment, so we'll argue this one. I'm going to say that if Moira goes top 10, then I think Maud Grimes should be in the top 10 as well.
I'm not going to argue.
Maud Grimes is an absolutely fantastic character who outlived Reg and Maureen on the show. One of the, she was the bit of the curmudgeon before Blanche came along and kind of took on that role for herself. That she was just the epitome of disapproving mother-in-law, wasn't she? When she was brought in as part of the Maureen and Reg romance, and I just love her first appearance where Maureen takes Reg home to her house and Reg has to pretend to be someone else because she'd met him and despised him 20-30 years previously, and she puts her glasses on and she's like, it's you. She's just so brilliantly grumpy, but it seemed like it was only to him, or she didn't suffer fools gladly, and she was absolutely perfectly pleasant to lots of other characters. And I think she liked Maureen's relationship with Bill, because compared to the likes of Reg and Fred, who Maureen was also romantically entangled with, Bill was the only one that wasn't a kind of a total outlandish idiot in Maud's eyes. I just think that she was really sensible, but I loved her kind of naughty streak as well, like when she was clearing out the shop when I think it was Fred taking over, and she hides a fish down underneath the counter so that the whole shop smells of fish because he cheated her out of a good deal on the shop. She was brilliant.
With Jim McDonald.
Yes, yeah, that scene when Jim was in his wheelchair and she'd found him, she'd seen him trying to throw himself in front of a car, and she sits him down. That was a brilliantly iconic Corrie moment there. She could do that emotional, serious stuff. She was never out and out funny in the same way as like Blanche had comedic lines written for her, didn't she? And as much as Maggie Jones said, I didn't find Blanche funny at all, she was clearly a character who was a joy to write for, because you could just give her all these funny things to say. I don't get that with Maud, but I still absolutely adored her. So I would want to maybe see her in the top 10, or at least maybe low teens. We've been left with Kylie and Paul here, who we've not really talked about. Do you want to go for one of those two?
I'm not super fussed on either of them, and I know that Kylie is quite a big fan favourite. And I definitely, up until Shona got shot in a box, I was very much team Kylie and David rather than
a lot of people
Shona
were,
and David.
yeah.
But now I think time has passed, and I really like Shona. I think she's actually better than Kylie.
I do as well.
Know.
I was never really fussed by David and
never...
Kylie together. I never really saw the appeal of them.
But to me, I think that they perfectly looked like, they suited each other very, very well. But I don't know how the legacy has faded so much, because I don't think that she's.
I think there are a lot of people that will still say they preferred Kylie.
I know, but the other thing with Kylie is that you've got Becky to compare her to as well, because they were sisters. And of the two, Becky's much bigger.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
And obviously, Paula Lane is in...
Is she in Emmerdale?
Emmerdale, I think she's in Emmerdale. I don't know, but she's moved on to other stuff. Yeah. She's a very good actress.
I never found myself missing her. I mean, she had a great exit story where she was stabbed and bled out in the road. That's, become one of the iconic Corrie moments, hasn't it? And David cradling her bloodied body in the street.
Her gobbing off with Gail was great. That kind of
I think that
tension.
Yeah, the tension, the antagonism between her and Gail was quite fun. Like, Gail tried to pay her a load of money to Scarpa when she was planning to marry David, didn't she? Because Gail just didn't get on with her whatsoever because she saw her as being too common. Didn't David pick her up in a cage dancing club in Ibiza or something like that? But I recognise her importance to the show, and as a member of Team Platt for a little while, that puts her up there. But if we're also thinking about personal preferences as we're ranking here, she's more of a middler for me.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll just put her with the rest of the middlers. And the same with Pete, with Paul as well. I'd happily put him lower because I loved him in, like you said, loved him in this story, but I didn't really think a whole lot of him up until that point.
No.
But it was such a change. It's like you said, as soon as he got his MND, suddenly he came alive as a character, as it were.
Right, so we've got Kathy is at 20, is she?
Yeah.
Right, is Jackie Jobs better than Kathy?
Yes.
Okay, right.
I'm going to say so.
So who is...
I'm going to keep saying yes to Jackie until you put your foot down.
That's fine. I'm just trying to work out who comes next. Who's worse than Candice but better than Jackie? Out of all these people, I think
maybe Terry or Alan or Ryan or Lucille. I'm thinking, but I know you're not going to agree with me on that one.
Lucille.
Does Ryan go above Paul?
I really think no matter what we do, it's going to feel wrong.
Yeah,
because this is just like I said. These people all also.
I would probably say that Paul should be higher than Ryan, only because I don't. As much as I think Ryan is good, I don't think he's had the same.
That feels right, yeah.
He hasn't had the same big, impactful, emotional story as Paul had. And I know, the acid in the face,
and then it turned into a weird affair, love triangle.
Yeah.
Like speed situation.
Yeah.
Where you fall in love with each other because you're in a dangerous.
Yeah, they're trauma bonded, aren't they, Daisy and Ryan? I think that Alan Bradley potentially should be snuck in even before some of these. I mean, I don't know.
No.
Before Candice, maybe?
No.
Before Lucille? Because he's
but hang on. So we got, I think Kylie. So we've got Kylie. We've got Terry. Terry, and we've got
Natalie.
Natalie.
I think Natalie should go higher than Terry. But maybe she shouldn't. Maybe she shouldn't, because Terry did have some really proper iconic scenes with Jack and Vera, like the story where he sold his baby and then Jack punched him out over Christmas.
If you say, right, so some of these characters, for example, if you take Natalie versus Terry, if you say to Corrie fans, right, come up with their most famous scene, everyone is going to use Natalie Horrocks and Sally Webster having a fight as their scene. With Terry, everyone's going to come up with a different one out of a list of about three or four, right?
Yeah.
Does that make him a better character? I'm going to say yeah.
I'd say only just, possibly.
But what? So
I feel
what about
like
Alan Bradley? I think Alan Bradley's probably. I think
he's riding.
Higher.
I think
really?
Alan Bradley is riding on. He was only in the show for a handful of years himself, and he had that iconic exit, but he was a really unenjoyable character up until then.
Are you forgetting that he was the reason that we had Richard Hillman at all?
I know. He paved the way. Was he?
I don't know.
No, he wasn't.
He's a social worker. What? How was he involved?
Oh, yeah. Brian Capron came into the show and in a different role when.
Didn't he? Who did Richard Hillman say he was the cousin of?
Alma.
Was it?
Yeah, that's why Richard Hillman turned up at Alma's funeral. Alan Bradley didn't have a cousin.
Well, I told you I was from a parallel universe when we started
in that
this.
universe, that's what happened. I wouldn't want to see Alan Bradley going much higher than this. I think that I'm feeling maybe I can't believe Moira is still here, to be honest.
Well, I'm not interested.
I'm not going to win this battle. I'm kind of thinking.
What Kylie in?
I'm wondering whether we go 15 Lucille, 14 Alan, 13 Terry, 12 Kylie, 11 Natalie.
Yeah.
Possibly.
That's fine with
and
me.
And then Moira at 10.
Right, so
everyone that's left in the top 10 is an icon, and one or both of us has got an absolute adoration for. Moira doesn't have that iconic status,
Right,
so I
hang
don't
on.
think she can get any higher.
So I can't see properly here. Who's that next to Moira?
Tina Mack.
Right, okay, interesting. So
It's definitely higher than Kylie in my
I think
book.
if we just to put snap to grid, we can go home.
I think
Carla needs to come over to the top 5 bit.
I think she
We've got
probably
6
is
top
5.
fivers now.
I don't think Bernie is. I think if we're gonna have anyone, I think that Bernie should be a 9. I think she's actually quite lucky to be in the top 10.
I'm sorry, but I would put Bernie above Mary.
I don't know. I think that Mary has got too much going for her and too much history on Coronation Street.
If I'm doing a chart of like how good a character is, Mary started high and's gone low, and Bernie started low and has gone high.
I think that...
Do you not put... How much stock do you put into what, if a character is still in the show, what their status is now?
You got to consider it, but I think that when I loved Mary, then, back in the day, I have never loved Bernie quite so much. Mary's highs were higher than Bernie's highs.
Okay.
But
I think Bernie is a much more rounded character.
She's come to the fore as part of the Paul storyline, and before that, I did quite like the evil twin story. Do you remember with Fern?
Yeah, that was great.
That was quite fun.
I like the fact that she's with Dev.
And she has shown that she can do some really serious scenes as well. There was a scene where she's sitting with Abby talking about dead children.
I was about to say that.
But it still feels like they're still waiting to give Bernie her iconic moment, her clip show, whereas Mary has got some clip show moments, hasn't she?
Okay.
So I'm saying I would.
Oh, right, but what about Maud? Maud possibly should be lower than both of these two.
Oh,
I know she's
maybe.
great, but what big story? At least Bernie and Mary have both had big stories.
I'm sad.
I know. I really rate Maud as well, but I think that
Maud was also a bit of a side character, to be fair, wasn't she? She clung on in
number
there.
9.
Oh man,
just above Moira. You want to put Moira?
I would go Mary 7, Maud 8, Bernie 9.
Oh, I wouldn't. I'm not going to fight you over it.
Okay, well, I'll leave it at that then. So we've currently got 6 remaining. So we've got Tina McIntyre, we've got Dev, Becky, Carla, Phyllis, and Ken.
Oh, see, Phyllis Pearce, right?
We've not mentioned Phyllis at all yet. We just said, oh yeah, of course, Phyllis.
Well, you put her over there as like the second person you moved in as like a top 3.
No, I don't think she's top 3.
I don't think
she's top 3 material.
I don't think she's a top 5 material.
I wouldn't. I don't think people would kick up too much of a fuss.
I think she's
if we put
very
her
similar
at 6
to Maud.
rather than 5. She is similar to Maud.
She's a crouchedy,
bit randier.
Yeah, I think Maud probably would have wanted to get her exercised.
Yeah, Phyllis was just superb, played by Jill Summers.
She was great. Yeah, randy old hoarse voiced lady who probably needs to go to a seminar about sexual harassment or something.
I literally don't think she had a single story,
no.
But she was just there as a side character for a good 15 years or so.
Do you think
just
then
brilliant for all of them
that she should be lower? Because I would put her where Bernie is. I'd put her at number 9, and then I'd put...
Don't let Adam Blease hear you saying that, because Phyllis is Adam's favourite character, Gemma.
I'm sorry, Adam. I'm really sorry. But Bernie's had... Like, you're the one that put the nail in the coffin by saying she hasn't had a story.
I suppose that's similar to Moira, isn't it? We've got... Phyllis definitely deserves to be higher than Moira, because she was a comedy side character for a lot longer.
Okay.
I mean, she had her sad moments, but on the whole, she was just there to be randy with Percy. When she comes in and is like, "Will you kiss me under the mistletoe, Percy?" And he's like, "I wouldn't kiss you under anaesthetic." She was involved in so many brilliant back and forths like that. I think that she probably deserves to be higher than Maud. I'm not sure about Mary. Does Mary go 6 and Phyllis go 7?
I genuinely think that Bernie is a better character than Phyllis, but If you want to have it like that.
I don't think
not
she's
think
had long enough to get there.
Isn't it kind of it's very interesting to me that the top the 5 to whatever the bottom 5
1
of
to
the 10
5
are all funny women.
There are a lot of funny women in here.
I mean this row.
This row.
Column,
6 to 10.
We've got Mary, we've got Phyllis, we've got Maud, we've got Bernie, and we've got Moira.
Yeah.
They're all great comedic women, female characters.
With Mary there at number 6, I think it's her kind of legacy that's got her there. She's, with all of these other characters, I can't say about Bernie yet, but if they suddenly stop being in the show, I'd be like, oh, they were great right until the end. And Mary, the longer they keep her in the show, the harder it is to remember back to when she was absolutely brilliant. It's her once legendary status on the show that's got her that high. But back in the 80s and 90s, Phyllis had that legendary status, didn't she? So maybe I should I do want to put like Phyllis and Maud higher than Mary, just because does Mary deserve to be higher rather than recency because of recency bias?
I don't. I think this list of these 5 women is almost impossible to rank.
They're unrankable.
They're almost impossible to rank them.
Well, rank them we must. Okay. So do you think Phyllis over Maud or Maud over Phyllis if we were just going to put these two like this?
Listeners, who would you put?
Can't ask them, they're not here at the moment.
They can't hear. You can't speak. But in a list of these 5 women, because they're so similar, how would you rank Mary, Phyllis, Maud, Bernie and Moira? I think some people will be shouting, oh, it's obvious I hate so-and-so and I love thingamabob.
I still feel that Bernie hasn't quite had long enough and hasn't had as many iconic scenes. And
more rounded than these women.
Yeah,
Bernie can do the drama. They all can.
They all can.
But Bernie's been asked to do more.
Yes.
That's fair to say.
That's fair to say. So should we go back to having Mary at 6, Phyllis at 7, Maud at 8?
Okay,
right.
I don't agree.
I'm not. What's the?
That's fine.
Is it those 3 that you don't agree with, or is it Bernie?
I think Bernie. To me, I would put Bernie at 6. I would.
I wouldn't. I just don't think she's got that iconic status yet. Sorry, Jane. Right, look, if we leave it at that for the time being, let's whack into the top 5. I think that Tina Mack there at number 5 is probably a good fit for her.
Wow, I'm glad you said that.
Good. Okay. Well, do you want to put her lower? Does she?
We can't.
Why?
Because she's so sexy.
It's true. She's charmed away into the top 5 here.
So
when
Tina
she was in the
McIntyre,
show, she was the poster girl of Coronation Street, wasn't she?
There are women like that all throughout the history of the show where they were like the headline grabbers and they were in it for like 5 years, right? And then they went on and did other things. Like I'm thinking of like Raquel Sarah Lancashire. I'm thinking like Karen.
Saran Jones.
I'm thinking even Millie Gibson who played.
R. Kelly.
I'm thinking somebody like, for example, Daisy, who's played by Charlotte Jordan. I'm thinking. Who else? They've been, everyone knows what I mean. They were in it for a really short amount of time. They made a massive, massive impact. And then it feels as though some of these people are going to go on to other things. Obviously, Tina McIntyre, played by Michelle Keegan, has gone on. She's been in loads of stuff. And honestly, fair play to her, because although I thought she was fantastic, I did wonder whether she would struggle to get other roles, but she hasn't. She's done brilliantly. I haven't seen anything.
We saw a little bit of Brassic, didn't we?
She was in a Netflix thing where she was a soldier.
You were.
And I was like, this woman was never in the armed forces.
But what about her time on Corrie?
I think everyone else was super hyped about her, and I was always like, she's okay.
I prefer her to Kylie, and I'm absolutely confident with having her that higher than Kylie is absolutely right. And I really enjoyed her and David as a couple, and I think that was when she was peak. I think that those two really had a great spark off of each other, and then she kind of fell off a little bit when she started hanging around with Tommy Duckworth.
I know, Tommy.
And then we had that ill-advised affair with Peter Barlow.
That was
obviously
was really
very
bad.
iconic death.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like we're talking her out of a top 5 position here.
No, I don't think so. She's better than Mary.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do, because she got given so much more to do. She got given so much more to do. The 5 women that we've put in the bottom half of the 10, I really rate them, but they're not the same sort of a character as these other ones, are they? Because there's different categories of characters, and she was never in a box of. She was in the drama box.
Yeah.
Tina, she was like, this character can have affairs, she can get stabbed, she can get thrown off a bridge, we could make her have terminal illness, she could, like, anything that we want to put on the front of a magazine, we'll get Tina McIntyre to do, right? Nobody's putting Mary on the front of a magazine because she's lost a button or something.
She did have that tragic story with Jude Appleton, and we found out about how...
I know, but that you're not, like, going, right, how do we get Mary on the front of the cover? What story can we give her?
No, I know.
They're not that sort of character.
Okay, but no way would I want Tina to be in the top 3 when we've got these other ones to contend with here.
I know that she is some people's absolute favourite all-time character.
Yeah, I get that.
But you're talking about putting her up against Ken Barlow, Carla Connor, Becky McDonald, and I know Dev Allahan is not going to be everyone's choice for a top 5, And I'm sadly going to say that I don't think he can get into the top 3.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that Dev might sadly have to lose out here.
Dev is
compared to his
Dev is
competitors.
At number 4 because of my eccentricity and stubbornness. I'm not even sure he deserves to be at 4, but because I love him, he's there.
I mean, you know, is he more iconic than the likes of Mary and Phyllis? Maybe he is. He's been in the show for a jolly long time, and he's not everyone's cup of tea, but he's had some big moments. You know, the massive naked photo of him, the Mad Maya story, the car crash in Coronation Street. Maybe that's not quite so iconic, but I just think that possibly Ken, Carla, and Becky getting him just kind of nudged him into 4th place there.
If Dev is not your cup of tea, you can go to Starbucks with Ronnie Clayton and enjoy yourselves, because me and Dev are going. We're staying in, and we're making our own tea. It's always better at home. I love Jimmy Harkishin
so much. He's so good.
I'm so sad, but I also want to say that sadly, I think that if we got him into the top 30, he would be 30.
Quite possibly.
I don't remember who else we've got there.
Well, we will find out soon, because I'm going to put that at the end of the episode.
Well, I'm going to remember that I wanted him to be in the top 3.
He's a very honourable mention. Very honourable mention.
And maybe I'll keep bringing him up when we're doing the final 30 and be like, well, Dev's better than this person.
It's not how Corrieliminator works. Right, so are we going to put Ken at number 1?
Ken's number 1 because
does he
he's
just
the OG.
automatically? We've got to be careful, because once we get into the final, we can't just put
We're not going to put Ken at number 1 because
because he's Ken, but I think
that's
earns
like having
a place.
a Russian election, isn't it?
I think he earns a place at number 1 here. So then it's really a case of Carla versus Becky.
This is tricky. Now, Becky was really not in it for a very long time.
How long did she have? Like 4, 5, 6 years, maybe?
I think it's longer than I remembered.
She left in 2012 because she departed only a few months before we started the podcast. Oh yeah, and she came into it in 2005 because we've seen that recently.
She was 2005, and then she went away and came back, and she was in it for 6 years, 2006 to 2012.
Yeah. Whereas Carla has obviously got much more of a legacy. She came into it in 2006, and 19 years later, she's still up there as one of the most important characters in the show. The thing I'll say about Carla is, and I've said it, I'm sure, before on the podcast, in my head, she doesn't feel like a Coronation Street character. And I think it's because I can't even explain it. She's always felt like a bit of a side character because she was the factory boss rather than somebody who came in and moved into the street, and she hasn't had that ready-made family like everyone else. And it doesn't make sense whatsoever, but in my head she doesn't feel like a Coronation Street character, and it's really crazy to say. But I think that's just one of my little eccentricities.
Can I just clarify one thing about the character of Becky, is that she wasn't played by
she wasn't played
Catherine Kelly the first
time. No, she was...
So Catherine Kelly was
she's the main, yeah. The first Becky was played by somebody
Amanda
else.
Tyrrell.
Yeah, and she was in like one episode and she had one line or something.
Like, my name's Becky McDonald, remember me? I'll be back.
Becky first appeared, she was homeless and begging outside the police station when Kelly and Lloyd came out one time, and Becky was like, Becky was like trying to get some money off her, or like say, hey Kelly, remember me? And Kelly was like, I don't know you, and walked off because she thinks she's moved on from her sad upbringing that Becky was still lingering in. But anyway, that's by the by. It's Becky Granger, Catherine Kelly, who really is memorable and a beloved Coronation Street character, and definitely one that I would love to see happy to come back again, but I don't think will.
Carla, you're saying I know what you mean when you say you don't feel like Carla is a Corrie character.
Do you? Can you explain to me what I mean? Because I can't quite reason it myself.
It's sort of, she fits into the same kind of thing as like Mike Baldwin, where because he had such a funny different accent to everybody else, it did feel like he guest starring Mike Baldwin as factory man, you know? Like, I think being the factory boss gives you a status above everybody else.
It's a bit of an us and them. Corrie's about the workers.
Yeah, it's even higher than being the landlady in a sense, because even though the landlady or landlord is obviously got employees, being the factory boss, you're employing so many people, and you're always having to make decisions and fire people and hire people way more than it feels like that's part of your job when you're the landlady. You're being a host and being generous, and there's a big part of that role which is being friendly and happy and smiley and welcoming, whereas being the factory boss is almost completely the opposite. You have to be very stern,
cutthroat.
Exactly. And the other thing about her is that she feels larger than life. Even in Coronation Street, she just felt like a bigger persona than a lot of other people. She's so confident, even when she's being vulnerable or kind of under attack or being challenged. I feel like her natural status is self-confidence.
Yeah, much
more than a lot of the other women, because they don't have the backing of, I own this place, whatever I say goes. I have to be sure of what I'm deciding, because when I make a tough decision, I have to sleep at night knowing I've said that.
Yeah.
And I have to be completely sure of myself at all times, otherwise I'll fall apart. And we've seen Carla fall apart.
We have seen her fall apart. We've seen her on her highest of highs, like when she came in and she was like sitting in the factory putting her feet up like I'm the boss's wife here, and she just oozed confidence. But we've seen her hit rock bottom in the mental health story, and 5-6 years ago, whenever it
Seeing
was.
Ghosts.
Yes, exactly. Was testament to that.
And she did that before it was fashionable.
Seeing a ghost? Yeah, absolutely. She had the falling out with Katie, or the rival, not Katie, Kate Ford, Tracy. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
the rivalry with Tracy was fun, but it overstayed its welcome.
The wheels came off quite spectacularly, in both literally and figuratively with that story.
I absolutely adored her relationship with Peter, and I feel like they were really, really well matched together.
Yes.
And it was a shame that had to end, but
a lot of people. I know there's a lot of Carla and Peter fans who would thank you for pointing out that she did have a great love in her life before she met our Lisa, who is now obviously her number one person, her soulmate forever.
I mean, she was going out with Nick for a while as well, wasn't she?
I think that this new direction for Carla, I think is great. I tell you what, I was kind of down on Carla for a long time. I was a massive Carla fan for years.
She was one of your favourites, wasn't she?
And then I felt like Corrie kicked the crap out of her because of her mental health storyline, and Corrie is, I don't think, very good at handling the aftermath of those stories, and it's difficult to say what is the correct thing to do. Carla
she just kind of lost it in the same way that Yasmin did a little bit.
Lost her confidence.
They put her through the ringer.
She wasn't even the factory owner for a while. It didn't feel right. Carla didn't feel right when she's not in the factory, and I felt I couldn't really I still was a fan of Carla, but if you were to watch it, you know, at that era, you wouldn't really know why she was so popular because they didn't give her much to do, and she was just sad and a bit of a shadow of her former self. She also got completely kind of overwhelmed as a person by Peter's problems and his alcoholism and supporting and being a good partner for him, and she became kind of like a support character for that bigger storyline. So she kind of got lost a little bit there in that mix because there's not a lot of room to sort of go and make knickers when you know your husband's in a puddle on the floor. So that was challenging for Carla, but I think really genuinely think that she's back on top now. She's such a fantastic character to watch. I love her. But I love her being the boss. I think she's so good at it. I think her being with Lisa has unlocked a completely different aspect of her. That's really fascinating. And this challenge that she's got with Betsy, because honestly, I don't think she ever felt like she had to parent Simon, even though she was, because Simon and Leanne's relationship, she's been with so many men who have had children that she could have taken on a maternal role with, but with Lisa and Betsy, this is the first time I think she's ever even considered I might be a stepmom. Like, I don't think she ever really thought of herself as that. She's never really cared about kids. Betsy is a bit of an older, you know, a teenager, so she's easier to sort of get along with. But yeah, it's a whole new world for Carla, and it's going to be really fascinating to see how she and Lisa navigate that.
I would say with Carla, she's not, although she's had periods of highs and lows in terms of her mental health and how fun a character she's been, it feels like she's consistently been on the go and had lots to do throughout her time on Coronation Street. I know that she went away for a bit. She moved to LA, but even then she was only away for a bit. She's never been sidelined for too long. In the same way that so many other characters have just had months or years with nothing to do. She's always been quite busy, it's felt. But yeah, because of those highs and lows, and there have been times when the character has been a bit dull. Then you get Becky, who I would say was brilliantly watchable throughout her time on Coronation Street, and I loved her with Steve and the destruction that she brought to that relationship. Obviously, Roy and Hayley and Becky were a wonderful trio, and they kind of helped bring her out of the skankiness that she came into the show as. I don't know whether, I can't remember these days if I can really put my finger on as many iconic Becky scenes. You know, she smashed up a flat one time. I remember her kind of going through the wreckage after the tram crash, trying to get some money from around the back of the corner shop. She was so compelling and watchable as a character, and a really kind of her vulnerability was it just made her so brilliant to watch. Her vulnerability with the confidence behind all that, but she just didn't believe in herself, and I think that Roy helped her to come out of herself a little bit more and realise that she did have something of worth to offer society. She was fun as a barmaid in the Rovers.
Well, she was tragically self-destructive.
Yeah.
And that was one of the hardest things to watch, and what made her such a great character was that she would mess things up. Like when she was so excited about marrying Steve that she got drunk and thrown in prison.
Oh yeah, of course, her wedding, that was pretty memorable, wasn't it? Yeah.
See, that's the kind of person that she is.
She had a great exit story as well.
Yeah, her exit storyline is probably the best.
No.
Yes, for as an outcome for a happily ever after for a character. I can't think of anything.
I don't know.
What do you think of something?
Elsie Tanner had a similar.
She died in a car crash.
Well, no, that wasn't her exit though, was it?
Well, she's dead now.
Who knows? Maybe Becky is.
God.
I think I have got more affection for Becky than I do Carla, but I think that Carla has clearly got much more of an iconic status than Becky, which possibly puts her higher on the list for me.
Don't get me wrong, Becky is a fantastic character. She is. I love her so much. She definitely deserves to be in the top 3.
Would you be happy with Carla at 2 and Becky at 3?
Well, I'm going to do a bit of a Candice here and use a meteorological metaphor and say that Becky was a tornado, but Carla was a hurricane. Because Becky kind of jumps in and muzzles everything around and is really powerful and amazing, but for a brief period of time. But Carla was like a sustained force of nature who's continued to blow all over the streets.
I think that if Becky was still in the show now and she'd had a similar amount of time on the cobbles than Carla, and her path hadn't gone down into the lows that Carla's had at some point, I'd be absolutely championing Becky here for number 2 or maybe even the number 1 position. But I'll happily keep her at number 3 for the time being. I think, are we done with our list? Do we want to just have one final look and see if we're happy with this?
I tell you what, this whole list is nonsense.
Well, with that in mind, here is our list. And for anyone who's listening that hasn't been keeping up with this.
If you're listening, you do this. I know we ask you to vote for your top 3, but you come up, you rank these. This is so much harder than you think it is.
Right, look, we've got number 30, Ronnie Clayton. We've got 29, Gloria Todd. 28, Nita Desai. 27, Eunice G. And 26, we have got Dr. Death, Ali Neeson. 25, The Boy in the Shed. We've got Daryl Morton. I forgot his name there. So memorable. 24, Ed Bailey. 23, Spoiled Little Rich Girl, Kate Connor. 22, Simon Barlow. Oh, should have Barlow be higher? No, I'm happy with him there. Number 21, recently departed, Max Turner. Number 20, Kathy Matthews. I think she's done quite well to get that high, maybe. Do you know what I mean? Move Kathy down? Or are we happy with her there?
I don't. Yeah, that's a good point, because
I'm kind of stalling there.
Maybe Max deserves to be higher than Kathy, but then I'd say Max should probably be higher than Jackie. But you won't budge on that, will you?
I won't budge on that one. So let's put Kathy at 21.
It's really important.
I do like her more. It's so important. This is crucial. People are looking to us for the answers.
This is like when you're watching a football match and all the referees have a conflagration.
Okay, so we got Kathy at number 21, Max at 20.
Important.
He's burst out of the bottom 10 there. Number 9, Aya Katz. It's
19.
Jackie Dogs. 19, sorry, can't even know my numbers. Number 18, I don't love them as much as Jackie, but it's Ryan Connor. 17, Paul. We've got 16, Up in the Sky.
Don't click it every
Candice
time.
Stubbs. I'm going to click it every time. Number 15, we have got Lucille Hewitt, the OG Kid on the Street. And number 14, Iconic Death at the Hands of a Tram, Alan Bradley. 13, another baddie from the classic Corrie days, Terry Duckworth.
I'm going to say that Alan Bradley threw himself under a tram because he was aghast at Rita's fashion. And I didn't realise how into fashion he was until he did that.
Number 12, a proper Corrie icon, and some people would definitely have her in her top 10, but she's not quite made it there for us. Kylie Platt. And number 11, Natalie Horrocks.
I might swap those two over.
Okay. I'll put Kylie at 11 and Natalie there at 12. I'll go for that if you want to. Number 10, a side character done very, very good for herself here, Moira Pollock.
She really has.
And then a recent entry, Bernie, winged away into the top 10 at number 9.
This section is nonsensical.
Doesn't make you say the whole thing is. Maud Grimes is stubbornly staying there at number 8, followed by the hoarse, croaky-voiced Phyllis Pierce. Number 6, Spinner of Yarns, Mary Taylor. And that takes us to our top 5, sexiest soap star in the universe, Michelle Keegan / Tina McIntyre. Number 4, it's Dev Allahan.
I'm sad. I'm so sad.
Schmoozes his way into the 4th position. Sadly, still being Corrieliminated this month, and that leaves us with our top 3 to go into the grand finale. I'm just
gonna say, I have a message on my phone from Jimmy Harkishan, a video of him wishing me happy birthday.
She does.
That lovely Georgia Taylor procured for me, and along with
it's your most biggest treasure, isn't it?
Along with Charlie DeMello, they got him to record this for me, and it's in a folder on my phone called Awesome. And because it begins with an A, so I can always see it because I love it so much.
What else is in there? Are there pictures of me in there?
Literally, that's the only thing in the folder.
The most awesome thing on your phone is Jimmy Harkishan wishing you happy birthday. Yeah. Number 3, we have got into the grand finale, Becky Granger / McDonald. Number 2, Carla Connor. And number 1, could it be anyone else this round, Ken Barlow? But he's going to be fighting for fighting for a position.
Fighting for his life, I think.
I think he will be in that grand finale, but he's got to be there. We've not even kind of said really, but I think it goes without saying why Ken needs to be there, and we'll probably have a lot more to say about him. I know we haven't said a word about him
next
month.
Top 3, I think that is a very respectable from this list of people. I don't think we can hold our heads up high here. Becky, Carla, and Ken, top 3 going through to the final round. I think any of these has got a very strong possibility of getting maybe in the final top 3 of that.
I don't think so, but possibly top 10.
Depends on how argumentative we are both feeling.
We might be feeling very argumentative.
Are we going to have to do separate lists?
I don't know.
It'd be so funny to go away and come up with our own ranking and then try to fight about who should be. I think it'd be chaos.
We will have a discussion about how that's going. Just before we finish this episode, let's have a reminder of who Ken, Carla, and Becky are going to be facing into the final.
I don't want to know.
We'll be right back in just a few seconds.
No.
So here we are then. After 10 rounds, we have finally whittled it down to 30 Coronation Street characters who are going to be battling against each other in the grand finale next month. But who have we got? Let's just have a final reminder before we start our sorting in next month's episode. So, round 1, we have got Abby, Blanche, and Gail.
Round 2, we've got Pat Phelan, we've got Emily Bishop, and we've got Steve McDonald.
Round 3, we've got I've got to remember her name. Elsie Tanner, Jack Duckworth, and Betty Williams.
Round 4, we got Hilda Ogden, Bet Lynch, and Ina Sharples.
That's a strong round, that one. Round 5, we've got Hayley Cropper, Jenny Connor, and Fred Elliott. I say Fred Elliott.
Round 6, we've got Rita Tanner, we've got Richard Hillman, and we've got Raquel. What was her name?
Woolston. We got Raquel, lovely Raquel. Round 7, Deirdre Rashid, Barlow. We've got Alf Roberts, and we've got Derek Wilton.
Round 8, we got David Platt. We've got Stan Ogden, and I can't see who that last Mavis.
That's Mavis. It's our Mavis. Round 9, we've got Audrey, we've got Dennis Tanner, and we've got Liz McDonald.
And round 10, we just did this, so I should know. We've got Ken, Carla, and Becky.
Wow, what a set of finalists.
These are the 30 best characters in Coronation Street, according to us.
From the way that Corrielimination has turned out, sadly there are some characters that maybe deserve to be in the top 30, but didn't make it through in their respective weeks or months. But that's the way it goes. These are the 30 that we're going to be sorting and ranking next time we're here in a month or so's time. Don't forget, you can still vote for your top 3 in this month's poll in round 10, and then we'll have a big old listener vote for the whole 30. Well, it's going to be 31 now, isn't it? Once that's all been decided.
Well, it might be 32.
It could be. This is who we're up to. Thank you everybody so much for listening. Thank you for watching. If you've been on YouTube, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you somewhat agreed with what we said. But if not, let us know. Write in, tell us, put it in the comments. Go and vote for yourselves. And we'll be back next time with the final grand finale, Corrieliminator. We will see you there. Bye-bye.
Bye.